Thank you. This is for all you ladies out there who like a bargain. This is called Buy One, Get One Free, girls.
Hello, my name's Charlie and welcome to another episode of the Time Traveller Diaries. Now today we're going to be going on the trail of the creator and author of James Bond, Ian Fleming. We're going to be visiting his house, one of his local pubs, and even to some James Bond locations featured in his books. Now before we do that, I'd like to explain a little bit about who Ian Fleming was. Now Ian Fleming was born on the 28th of May 1908 in Green Street, London. He's best known for writing 14 James Bond books, including Thunderball, Moonraker, You Only Live Twice, From Russia with Love and many more. Now of course all of these novels would be turned into major movies starring a range of actors including Sean Connery, David Niven, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig. But if you thought that Sean Connery was the first actor to play James Bond on screen, you'd be wrong. It was actually Barry Nelson in 1954. Now President Kennedy met Ian Fleming in Washington and Kennedy claimed that the book From Russia with Love was one of his favourite 10 books of all time. Now coincidentally, Lee Harvey Oswald, Kennedy's alleged assassin, was also a huge James Bond fan. Now you can view Lee Harvey Oswald's library book record, and Oswald borrowed every single James Bond book available to him in his local library. Now even stranger, it's alleged that Kennedy and Oswald were both reading a James Bond book the night before President Kennedy was assassinated on the 22nd of November 1963. So without further ado, let's get to the locations. And here we are, in front of Kingstown Cliffs in Kingstown, Kent, England. It's a beautiful sight as you can see. Now we're going to go over there and there I'll explain to you the significance of this location. And here we are at the foot of Kingstown Cliffs in Kingstown, Kent, England. Now, check out that rock face once more. Now, it was in the novel Moonraker in which Mr. Drax's missile was installed inside this cliffs, inside this rock face. Now, there's a scene in the novel which I will describe for you. Now, James Bond and an undercover policewoman called Gala Brand were swimming in the English Channel, just here. Now, they came out of the water and laid down on the stones in order to sunbathe. That is when the devilish Mr. Drax saw them and decided to cause a lethal rockfall to try and kill the pair. Now James Bond and Gala Brand moved out of the way and survived, and as a consequence they decided to retreat to the Granville Hotel, which is situated at St. Margaret's Bay, a couple of miles along the coast. So that's where we're going to be going. Now I would like to mention that the movie Moonraker was greatly glamorised in compared to the very humble and modest book, with Mr. Drax being played by the late actor Michael Lonsdale. But now let's get on to that next location, the Granville Hotel. And here we are at the Granville Hotel, or I should say now the Granville Flats. Unfortunately the Granville Hotel has been demolished and these flats are now in its place, which is a sad shame because it's part of James Bond history that no longer exists. Now I'll do another shot further back and we'll try and line up where the original building stood. Now here is hopefully a better shot of where the Granville Hotel once stood, which was a location in the novel Moonraker. We'll try and line up the shot for you there if we can, and the best we can. I'd also like to quickly mention, do you know why Ian Fleming chose James Bond to be Agent 007? Well, he chose the number 007 because that was the number of a bus that ran through Kent and is now part of the National Express. Now this house behind me here was built in 2005 and designed by Keith Barker, and it's called Moonraker, and it was built in dedication to the god of James Bond, Ian Fleming himself. And here we are at the gorgeous St Margaret's Bay in Kent, England. Now this building behind me, this was Ian Fleming's house. Let's go take a look. And here we are in St Margaret's Bay, Kent, England, at the house of Ian Fleming. Now Ian Fleming moved in here in the early 1950s. It was previously owned by his friend and playwright Noel Coward. Ian Fleming used to enjoy gazing out at the shipping with his telescope from the confines of this building, and what amazing views he had. We should also point out that Ian Fleming also wrote the children's novel Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which was published in 1964 and years later in the late 60s was released as a movie starring Dick Van Dyke. But now we're going to go to one of the local pubs that Ian Fleming used to frequent. Come with us. But actually, before we go, I wanted to mention a couple more things. Now, it was in this house that Ian Fleming would entertain his celebrity friends, including the writers Evelyn Waugh and Somerset Maugham. But also, Ian Fleming used to regularly play golf at the Royal St George's Golf Club in Sandwich, Kent, about 8 miles away from here. Now, that was the golf course which inspired the golf match between James Bond and Goldfinger in the novel and book Goldfinger, although in the movie, the golf course was actually in Buckinghamshire. Here we are at the Swingate Inn. Now, it was in this pub where Noel Coward and Ian Fleming used to drink together. In fact, they used to race each other from London to see which one of them could get to this pub first and be sat waiting with a drink for the other one. Let's check it out. And here we are at the Swingate Inn on the Deal to Dover Road in Kent. Now this is where Ian Fleming and Noel Coward used to drink together. It's now also an Indian restaurant if you want to check out further around the room. But before we get into this last segment, as we're drinking in the pub in which Ian Fleming, the god of James Bond himself, used to drink in, there's one drink that I've just got to order. So here we have it, the vodka martini, shaken not stirred, like James Bond himself. This is a first for me in 41 years of living, so let's give it a go. That's very strong. Now, Ian Fleming sadly passed away at the Kent and Canterbury Hospital in 1964. He'd been a heavy drinker and a heavy smoker pretty much his entire adult life. And sadly, his last words were to his ambulance drivers, in which he said, "I'm so sorry to trouble you chaps. I don't know how you get along so fast with the traffic on the roads these days." Now, Ian Fleming is buried in Wiltshire, England, but years after his death, tragedy would sadly strike again when in 1975 Ian Fleming's son Caspar Fleming would commit suicide aged just 23 from taking a lethal drug overdose. Now, in Caspar's pocket of his pyjamas there was a note which simply said, "If it is not this time, it will be the next." So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and we'll see you next time on the Time Traveller Diaries. Cheers.